Here's turn 10 we're looking at just below, and then the final turn 11, which is tricky because it's a key corner to getting good speed over the crest at 1 and then into Andretti at 2. Here we go then. Our Group 8 race getting away, and a host of fantastic cars from the 70s.
And already side-by-side racing as they head into turn number 2. A very tricky turn. You need to be on the inside. That is the preferred line, and it tightens up again as they get into turn 3. Again, you're going to have patience, then finally get on the throttle, and you set up for turns 4 and the optimum batteries turn 5. You need to turn in a little bit early for turn 5 to set up your speed going up the turn 6 towards the Franklin Road Apparel turn.
Yep, here they go. There was some water down here at the bottom of this corner earlier yesterday. Thankfully it's gone now, so no slip sliding as they head towards 5 for the first time, one of the key corners here before they start to make that long climb up the hill towards Ray Hall in turn 6, and then of course the corkscrew. Already some great overtaking going on between the Datsuns and the BMWs.
Yeah, the prime passing zone is basically at turn 2 where we're looking at the start of this race, and surprisingly another secondary passing zone is up at the top of this corkscrew. They've added some pavement a little bit to the outside as you enter, so you can basically straighten that turn out and get a good run down the corkscrew as they're coming through that now. You see one car went a little bit more than what I was talking about there, Jonathan.
Yeah, exactly. So
Rob to the inside.
Rob Fuller at the moment chasing Troy Ernish at the lead of this race, and you can see the gap they've already pulled away as they head down towards turn 10 to finish the first lap here of our group race.
Yeah, Troy Ermish and Rob Fuller, the two fastest cars all weekend long, both Datsun 510s, and they have been trading fastest laps back and forth, but it's Ermish who was fastest. Ermish again won the GT Lights Championship in 2017 and won the GT2 Championship. Both of those classes this car is eligible for last year, and won the coveted President's Cup for SCCA during those runoffs. Ermish, a very accomplished driver and very familiar with that Datsun 510. He's run it for a number of years on the West Coast here and brings it east during the runoffs.
Absolutely. So it's Ernish, Fuller, Fowler, Jim Fowler in third position, then Richard Stewart Mills, Sam Smith in fifth place, and Armin Gorbani in sixth. That's how it stands at the moment. A short race, not easy to get yourself dialed in. And there you see it on the top left of your screen there. The top 6 I just mentioned. Brandhoff in 7th. Lippiat in 8th position, Blasman 9th, and Davis rounding out in the top 10. But like I said, not a lot of time to dial yourself in. Just when you're starting to get comfortable, you get towards the really sharp end of the race.
Yeah, this track requires a lot of concentration, requires a lot of steering input, as you're only really straight here at the front straightaway. Even the Ray Hall straight is not really a straight, it's kind of a bend. But you are busy here all the time. The only time you really have to relax, and even that is not much, is here along the front straightaway. And even then, much like at VIR, it kind of bends in kind of the kink, which they call turn 1.
What's your favorite? Do you like the Datsuns or you're a BMW man?
I'm a Datsun man. I grew up around the road Atlanta and Jim Fitzgerald, who was a Datsun factory driver and Datsun driver for years. So I'm always partial to the Datsuns, and always saw Bob Sharp Racing come through with their Datsuns. They battled the Group 44 in the different classes, B sedan, C production, and as it turned out, B production in the later years.
Yeah, beautiful cars. And of course, a really interesting point in the American race history is when the Japanese came to play. Before that, it was Americans, basically against the European small bore cars. And the Datsuns were small bore, but they kind of took the best out of both, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Actually, the Datsun is based on the BMW 1602, the 2002 being a successor to that. But the Datsun 510 actually, it came into the U.S. The Dr. K or Yutaka Katayama was actually sent to the U.S. as a bad thing because he racing. The management group of Nissan Datsun at the time did not want to go race cars, so they sent Katayama to the U.S. and he was here and he began to understand the U.S. market, and he is instrumental in the reason why that the 510 and the 240Z are over here, both iconic cars, and we're watching the 510s out there now. But yeah, it was a great battle between the Europeans until the Datsun 510 showed up, and then it was the Japanese Datsun 510 going up against the BMWs. The 2002, a 2-liter, the first 2 stands for, and a 2-door sedan, which is the second 2 stands for BMW 2002. And they, along with Alfa, were the 3 main manufacturers in the under 2 liter and under 2.5 liter Trans Am Challenge.
And also it helped the Japanese basically get themselves into the American market, which they hadn't really profiliated up against Ford and Camaro, and they became a household name, and everybody wanted one. They were good runners. They were good family cars, small but very efficient, and they soon started to take hold, especially here in California.
And funny how this works. The management that was upset with Katayama suddenly was very pleased with him because they were exporting the Datsun 240Z and 510 in record numbers to California.
Yeah, exactly. So California became a hotbed, and of course Laguna Seca on a Sunday was where they proved just what they had in terms of performance. So it became a very interesting time. Still earnish though, and a great battle at the front, just 0.3 of a second between our leaders here in our group feature race 1. Each group, by the way, gets 2 runs each weekend and a lot of time on track. I think that's one of the things that Tony Perella has really made sure and persisted on each and every weekend, that every one of the historic drivers does get plenty of track time. The races, well, it is a race, but it's more about track time. And also, it's about being yourself. You want to go as fast as you can. Sometimes you want to win if you're in a position to do so, but other times you're racing against yourself.
Yeah, and these are original historic cars, and it's not just like you can go down to your local Datsun dealer and get another part. So you have to be a little careful. Contact is obviously discouraged greatly. We like to see very hard racing, but very clean racing as well. A little bit further back is the C production battle for Group 8. That has been between Paul Gaudio in a Porsche and Bruce Mauerhan and the other Datsun that we were talking about, the 240Z. They have been going at it all weekend long too. Gaudio and Mauerhan were only separated by a couple of tenths of a second in qualifying this morning. And Gaudio in the Porsche, Mauerhan in the 240Z, they're quite a ways back. But again, great collection of these B sedan cars. This is basically because of David Stone, one of the drivers here, who was instrumental in getting these cars and drivers first interested in this particular event and then actually out here and competing in it. We've had a great reception, as you can see, by all the cars out there on course. But Roy Fulmer and Troy Ermish going at it. Those 2 drivers split the race wins last year, and they've been the 2 fastest cars. They're at it again, John.
Yeah, and Ernish has just extended his lead now to just 1.4 seconds, and I don't know if Fuller made a mistake there, but that definitely increased dramatically in that last lap. We'll keep an eye on it. 10 minutes to go as we look high above. Yes, you can see the Monterey Bay in the background there. The Sea Lions and the Otters will be doing their bit. If you ever get a chance to go to Monterey, it's a wonderful place to go.
A couple of good cars coming through down the front straightaway. I believe that is Foods turn 2. Good close racing, and that is one of the things about SVRA. The cars are very equal, and with this big a field, you're going to have a race pretty much anywhere along the way. As we see the car coming through turns 2 and 3 and headed up towards turn 4. This is a very difficult turn. It's very easy to turn in a little bit too early here and slide off to the outside of that turn. You do not want to do that, as that berm out there is very, very unforgiving. Then you turn in a little bit early for turn 5 to get an aerial overhead shot of this beautiful WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca facility. And then going up the Rahal Straight into turn 7 and turn 8, the corkscrew. And down that 10-story drop, as you said, Jonathan, down to turn 11 and back across the start-finish line. So
we've got a really good battle for the lead and for the win here after 4 laps. And with 9 minutes to go, it's going to be a real cracker to the end between Ernish and Fuller, I think. Fuller, let's see if he can get back on the pace. He's just 1 and a bit seconds behind, but that can change very quickly here. Frula in 3rd position. He's some 9 seconds off that battle. Then Milne. We got a nice view of Blazeman in that all-purple number 40. And that's a cracking-looking car as well. He's currently in 8th position. 9th is Lipiat in 9th. And then Davis now up to 10th position.
Hey, Robert Davis in that Lotus Super 7. Leading in D production. That was one of Colin Chapman's designs. It was designed for the street, but he also wanted to design it as a race car. It's very lightweight. As you can see, it's a convertible. It's basically what people describe it as a Formula car with fenders. It was used to win the D production national championship by Tom Robertson. That one in is displayed at Barber Motorsports Park in their beautiful museum there. But Lotus Super 7, very potent, still is in the C production category. In SVRA, usually in the hands of John Nash, and in D production today in the hands of Robert Davis. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Big weekend of racing. Lots of different groups here. We've got obviously all the 2 Trans Am races. The TA race coming up later today, and tomorrow TA2, a massive field. But SVRA well appointed and well represented here, as always, at Laguna Seca. They love their historic racing here. And of course, with Pebble Beach just down the road and so many of the dealers here, there's always been a very robust entry field here.
Yeah, we're very, very blessed to have a great entry here for SVRA and Trans Am 2, along with the historic Trans Am. Had a glimpse on screen there, Jonathan. I believe that's him again, of the Porsche Paul Gaudio. That's a air-cooled flat 6 engine. It has retained most of the basic lines of the 356 coupe, which it replaced, but it's a little bit lengthened, so it can have a 2+2 designation, and it has improved aerodynamics. And not long ago, we had a glimpse of Bruce Marhan's Datsun 240Z as he chases him around. Great shot there, number 27 Datsun 510 going through. Again, this is an iconic racetrack. It was during the day from 1957 on, and it is today. Beautiful day here at Monterey.
Yeah, that was Robert Brooks you mentioned in the 27. Good to see him out there, running 27th, ironically. Yeah, good to see him. And also want to say fastest laps, laps coming down. Brandman just did his fastest lap. Brandhoff, excuse me, did his fastest lap of 147.3.
Now there's a couple of non-Datsun and non-BMWs in the field. Mauricio Brandhoff was the fastest non-Datsun or BMW in the Group 8 B sedan category. He's in a Ford Capri Coupe. Also, we had entered a Toyota Corolla and a Volvo. Yes, Volvo was very potent back in the B sedan SCCA club racing days. Not so much success in the under 2-liter Trans Am, but certainly had a lot of success with the B sedan category in SCCA racing.
Be interested to see if that gap's come down at all between the leaders, because we want to see if we can get a grandstand finish. They're getting into a little bit of traffic in terms of as they fight through now, the leaders. 1.4 seconds was the gap. We'll see if it changes now in the closing stages of this. Group 8, our first feature race of 2 for them.
Yeah, I think the advantage is going to be with Ermish. Ermish, again, very familiar with both WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca, where we are this weekend, and even more familiar with Sonoma Raceway, where we'll be next weekend for the Mission Food Speed Tour. But Ermish, I think, is going to have the advantage even through traffic. Yeah, I think he knows this track a little bit better than Roy Fulmer, but Fulmer is right there.
And I'll tell you what, back-to-back events like this here at Sonoma and Laguna Seca, it's going to be great because you want as much track time, and this is what it's all about, historic racing, is how many laps can I do for a weekend and enjoy myself. But 2 very different tracks, but also with an equally different challenge too.
Yeah, between the test day, practice, 2 qualifying sessions, and 2 sprint races, you do get a lot of value for your money here in SVRA, and that's part of it's the joy of driving. It's the thrill of being out there. No, you want to beat people, obviously, because you're racing against racing, John. But we also you just want to get the joy of driving out there as well.
Bay Area Datsun, that's who Rob Fuller is backed by. And you can see that gap now yourself physically between the 2 leaders as we focus on them now, going up the Ray Hall straight towards the famous corkscrew. And it's great to look from overhead at that corkscrew because you really do get a sense of just how far it drops.
But you really get a sense. I was privileged to drive around with our driver development, driver that is Ernie Becker for the Trans Am 2 series. And going down that, it's even more terrifying than just actually looking at it. It's almost like a Disney ride. It's that big a drop, 10 stories down from the top of the corkscrew all the way down to the bottom of turn 11. The most famous of the Datsun 510s, number 46, that was the famous Brock Racing Enterprises red, white, and blue Datsun 510 that won the 1971 and 72 under 2.5-liter challenge with John Morton driving. Unfortunately, both Alpha and Datsun pulled out of the series after 1972, and they went back just to the regular Trans Am 1 class make for the rest of that year.
Yeah, why do you think they just felt that they'd done enough?
Well, a little bit was that Datsun had developed that car. We talked about it coming over. Well, that car was in development for several years, and it was developed so well that it was basically dominating. And when one manufacturer dominates over another, the other manufacturers kind of say, I don't think I want to be in. At first it was Alpha that was dominating. Then Datsun came in, and Datsun was dominating. And in between those two was a Porsche 2.25 liter that was a little bit dominant. But again, one manufacturer being dominating, the other manufacturer says, I don't think so. And then Datsun had really nobody to race against except themselves, so they didn't see much, unfortunately, did not see the reason to be in the series and pulled out.
Truth is, that's the story of motor racing.
Yes, basically.
You could write a book on every manufacturer that has dominated, from Mercedes in Formula One all the way down to the Can-Am and Trans Am. You know, there's always a sweet point when somebody gets it right and nobody can copy them, and they dominate potentially for a decade sometimes.
Yeah, that happened in IMSA with the Porsches between the 935s, the Creamer editions, and the 962s. Porsche was the car to have. Right at the beginning of that stretch, the Decon Monza with Al Holbert was the car, but after that, Porsche dominated, and it was basically great drivers back then, great cars, iconic cars, but they were mostly Porsches.
And it's like we've got that iconic Audi. I'm not sure what group it's in, but it's one of the most successful Audis. And when Audi went World Sports Car Racing and then into IMSA, they didn't see the dust of anybody else, did they?
No. You know, Travis Engen, that number 2,
right.
the silver 2005 Audi, that won, I believe it was 5 of the 7 years that competed at Le Mans, won 6 consecutive Daytona 24 Hours and 7 consecutive American Le Mans Series championships. But being that said, Peugeot gave them a run for their money a couple of those years, but came up second.
Yep, absolutely. So we're coming down to the closing stages of our first Group 8. Scott Conway and Jonathan Green bringing you the action from SVRA. I'm really enjoying these beautiful Datsuns and BMWs. That's one of my favorites there, beautifully prepared in the old Bavarian colors. Love it.
Yeah, again, I grew up in around Road Atlanta, and of course Jim Fitzgerald was the driving instructor there. Jim Fitzgerald, one of the drivers, and ran in the Trans Am Series for a couple of years. But also Bob Sharp Racing always came to Road Atlanta very prepared with the B sedan entries for both himself and Dave Frelson, and won a number of national championships. 71 and 72 were 2 of Bob Sharp's racing championships there. I believe Dave Frelson's was in 77, but again, B sedan was the home of the Datsun.
And as you can see, a good clean race as they file back into the pits, no dramas, and that's really what you want out of historic racing, which is a good spectacle, but not too many dramas, because they want to do it all again, of course.
Yeah, and they have a second feature race coming up, plus a B sedan feature race as well.
All right, my thanks to Scott Conway. That gets us underway in our SVRA coverage. We'll take a short break. We'll be back from the famous and iconic Laguna Seca after this.